Welcome to RankLens. Today, we count down the top 10 countries with the largest railway networks. Some countries barely have any rail at all. Others, they've built entire civilizations on tracks. And when it comes to sheer distance, the sprawling networks that span continents and connect nations, the competition gets fierce. Today, we're counting down the 10 countries with the largest railway networks on Earth. From sprawling freight corridors to high-speed passenger lines, from mountains to plains to deserts, these rail systems are engineering marvels. Some might surprise you, some you'll see coming. But one thing's certain, by the time we hit number 1, you'll understand just how much of our world runs on rails. Let's start the countdown. At number 10, we have France with 28,000 kilometers of railway. France transformed European rail travel when it launched the TGV high-speed train back in 1981. That innovation didn't just move people faster, it completely changed the game. Paris sits at the absolute heart of France's rail system, serving as the hub that connects every major city in the country. It's a radial network that works like spokes on a wheel, all leading back to the capital. And here's where geography gives France a real advantage. The country's compact size means fast rail can actually compete with domestic flights. Airlines can't compete with a train that gets you there faster and drops you right in the city center. For France, rail isn't just nostalgia, it's modern transportation at its finest. At number 9, Brazil with 31,000 kilometers. But here's the thing. When you travel Brazil by rail, you're mostly just cargo. Brazil's rail network is almost entirely dedicated to freight, mining, agriculture exports, moving the raw materials that power the economy. This isn't a system built for people. The network is heavily concentrated in the industrial southeast, particularly around Sao Paulo, where the money is and the mines are. But venture beyond that region and rail becomes scarce. Look at a map of Brazil's rail system, and then look at its geography. The vast Amazon region stretches across the north, and it's got virtually no rail coverage at all. The jungle and the distances make railways economically unviable. So Brazil's network is specialized, efficient at what it does, but for moving cargo, not carrying people. At number 8, Australia clocks in at 33,000 kilometers. Like Brazil, Australia's rail is mostly freight. Iron ore and coal hauled down from the interior to the ports, feeding global demand. Australia's got the minerals, and rail's the cheapest way to move them. But Australia does have one legendary passenger service, the Indian Pacific. This train crosses an entire continent, leaving Sydney on the east coast and not stopping until it reaches Perth on the west. That's the kind of journey that tests human endurance and rail infrastructure in equal measure. Here's the puzzle. Australia is absolutely massive, yet it only has 33,000 kilometers of track. Why? Because the interior is sparse. Most Australians live on the coast, so the rail network hugs the shoreline and the freight routes, leaving the vast outback largely untouched. At number 7, Germany also sits at 33,000 kilometers. But wait, Germany and Australia have the same track length, yet they feel completely different. That's because Germany's rail network is phenomenally dense relative to its land area. Germany packed a lot of rail into a smaller space. Deutsche Bahn's intercity services don't just connect German cities. They link Germany directly to its neighboring European nations. The whole continent's rail network has Germany at its core, and that history goes deep. The Ruhr Valley, Germany's industrial heartland, was historically served by exceptionally dense rail infrastructure. In the 19th and 20th centuries, coal, steel, and manufacturing drove Germany's economy, and rail was the circulatory system that made it all work. Even today, that rail legacy remains. At number 6, Argentina with 37,000 kilometers. And this one's a tale of boom and decline. Argentina's rail network was built during a 19th-century investment boom, and most of that money came from Britain. British engineers designed the lines, British companies funded the construction, and by the early 1900s, Argentina had one of the world's most modern rail systems. It connected Argentina's fertile pampas farmland straight to the port of Buenos Aires, turning agricultural exports into wealth. But wealth doesn't last forever. Decades of state underinvestment followed. Much of that glorious network fell into disrepair. Trains that once carried presidents and grain shipments slowed to a crawl or stopped running altogether. Today, Argentina is working to restore parts of its network, but the golden age has faded. The legacy remains, the ghost of a rail empire that once rivaled Europe's finest. At number 5, Canada with 45,000 kilometers. Now we're entering bigger numbers, but like Brazil and Australia, Canada's rail is freight-obsessed. Passenger rail is minimal. This is a network built to move goods across a continent. The Canadian Pacific Railway, completed in 1885, was a nation-building project. It literally linked Canada from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific, unifying a vast, scattered country into one economic entity. Imagine that ambition, connecting Toronto to Vancouver by rail, spanning 4 time zones. It was transformative. Today, railways still define Canada's economy. They haul grain from the prairies, containers from ports, minerals from the north. But Canada's territory is so vast and its population so sparse that long-distance passenger rail never really took off. It's economically rational but culturally poignant. The country was literally united by rail, yet most Canadians never ride a train. At number 4, India with 69,000 kilometers. We're crossing into a very different tier now. Indian Railways is one of the world's largest employers by workforce size. Hundreds of thousands of people work on the network, operating trains, maintaining tracks, staffing stations. It's a massive organization. And here's the thing. The network was largely built during British colonial rule in the 19th century. The British created a rail system to extract Indian resources and consolidate control. They never expected it would outlive their rule or evolve into what it is today. India's rail system carries one of the highest passenger volumes on Earth. Hundreds of millions of journeys every year. Families traveling to see relatives, workers commuting to cities, students heading to school. For ordinary Indians, the railway isn't a luxury or a novelty. It's the circulatory system of the nation. At number 3, Russia with 86,000 kilometers. And now we're talking about scale that defies comprehension. Russia's rail system spans 11 time zones. 11. From Moscow in the west to the Pacific coast in the east, rail is the primary mode of long-distance travel for passengers and freight alike. The Trans-Siberian Railway is the world's longest single continuous rail line. It's the gold standard of rail journeys, the ultimate bucket list train ride. Passengers board in Moscow and ride for days across Siberia, crossing mountains, forests, and tundra, until they finally reach Vladivostok on the Pacific. The journey takes over a week. In a land where distances are almost unimaginable and winters are brutal, rail isn't optional, it's civilization itself. Russia's network connects a continental empire, moving people and resources across an incomprehensibly vast territory. At number 2, China with 162,000 kilometers. We're almost at the top, and now we're seeing modern ambition at scale. China operates the world's largest high-speed rail network by total length, not Japan, not Europe, China. And this expansion happened at breakneck speed. From the 1990s onward, the Chinese government invested massively in rail. It wasn't gradual, it was state-directed industrial policy at mega-project scale. The network expanded dramatically, turning rail into a centerpiece of 21st-century infrastructure. The geography makes sense. China needed to connect its vast interior provinces with its densely populated coastal cities. Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou. These megacities needed fast, efficient rail links to the hinterland. High-speed rail solved that. Today, a traveler can board a bullet train in one provincial city and reach another in hours. At number 1, the United States, with 294,000 kilometers of railway. By a massive margin, the US has the largest rail network on Earth, almost twice the size of China's. But here's what makes it different. American rail is almost entirely dedicated to freight. Passenger rail is a tiny afterthought. This is a network built to move cargo, not people. The Transcontinental Railroad, completed in 1869, first linked the American coasts and opened up the continent. That achievement unified a sprawling nation and drove industrialization. But America made a different choice than most countries. After automobiles and highways became dominant, rail investment went almost entirely to freight. Today, American freight railroads move more tons than any other country's rail system. That's the American superpower. Not moving people on rails, but moving the materials that build civilization. These 10 countries represent 10 different visions of rail. Some saw it as a way to move people across vast distances. Some built it to extract and export resources. Some inherited it from colonial empires. Some invested in it for 21st century modernity. Together, they control over 1.5 million kilometers of track, more than half the world's entire rail network. What's fascinating is that the biggest network isn't always the most sophisticated. The densest isn't always the oldest. And the most modern isn't always the most important to everyday life. Rail remains one of humanity's greatest achievements, a technology that still shapes how nations grow, how goods move, and how people connect. The countdown is over. The story of the rails goes on, and that's the top 10 countries with the largest railway networks. If you enjoyed this countdown, subscribe to RankLens for more.